How big is the issue of organised crime, infiltration of the construction industry and the CFMEU?
It's widespread.
More damning union revelations.
The industry is rife for corruption, high turnover, high profits.
Exposing even greater disgrace.
The CFMEU behaves like a crime gang.
At the CFMEU.
Individuals that corrupt and bribe have no place in civil society.
60 Minutes. Next.
When 5 weeks ago, 60 Minutes exposed widespread corruption, including infiltration by Underworld figures and bikies at Australia's militant CFMEU, the fallout was immediate. Sweeping reforms were promised, and on Friday, the government delivered. The Construction and General Division of the union was put into administration, and the positions of more than 270 officials were terminated. While it's a vital development, it hasn't stopped our joint investigation with the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and Financial Review. And tonight, we can report the rot at the CFMEU has spread even further than we first suspected. In its finished form, this apartment block in Sydney's north is as unremarkable as any other. It fulfills its purpose, providing much-needed accommodation in a very tight housing market. But the story of the construction of these units is mired in a tragedy that should never have happened. Five years ago, when it was a building site, this was the chaotic and frantic scene. Without warning, 17 metres of scaffolding had collapsed. And crushed beneath the rubble was apprentice Christopher Casaniti. 4 days earlier, he'd celebrated his 18th birthday.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that Christopher would come to work and not come home. You know, it didn't even cross my mind.
Christopher didn't stand a chance, something that will always haunt his parents, Rob and Patricia. But what truly angers them is now knowing their son's death cannot be called an accident. What it is the worst example of the failings of the CFMEU and its murky dealings with alleged underworld figures and their associates who've infiltrated the building industry.
He had such an amazing life ahead of him, and it was stolen from him. He never even got a chance to go to a pub and have his first drink with his mates. You know, never saw the inside of a nightclub. For what? You know, I asked the question, for what? Just because we need to get the job done. We've got to rush, we've got to hurry up. And that's where, you know, things start happening. And that's heartbreaking.
What happened to Christopher Casaniti is inexcusable. Put simply, the scaffolding company Synergy was utterly negligent. It wasn't known at the time, but Synergy also had alleged underworld links. Prior to Christopher's death, it had been, according to claims aired by authorities in court, secretly part-owned by feared bikie boss Mick Howie. When someone like Mick Howie, allegedly at least, gets involved in a company like Synergy Scaffolding, will his concern be worker safety?
I think it's probably lower than the totem pole. I'm sure that making money is the priority.
Former organised crime commander Rob Critchlow knows a thing or two about Sydney's underworld and its infiltration of the construction industry. A 30-year veteran of the New South Wales Police Force, he spent much of his career investigating the state's bikies and gangsters. Tonight, he's sharing his expertise publicly for the first time. Who was Mick Howie?
Mick Howie, up until his death, was the president of the Comancheros. He was one of the leading lights of the OMCG community, very high profile, deeply connected in the underworld.
Is it fair to say Mick Howie was one of Sydney's top gangsters?
Definitely, yes, absolutely.
In life, Mick Howie was the ultimate gangland figure, with a flashy lifestyle to match. But when he was gunned down outside of Fitness First Gym in 2018, it wasn't just his organised crime links that police investigated. It was also his secret dealings in Sydney's construction industry and allegations that he was a silent part owner of one of Sydney's biggest scaffolding firms.
Why would someone like Mick Howie turn to a company, allegedly, like Synergy Scaffolding?
The industry is rife for corruption, high turnover, high profits. Scaffolding is a bit like concreting, where it can hold a job up. So companies need scaffolding to do their business, and they can't do it without it. So it's a way of having guaranteed high return funds. There's been a long history of people involved in the criminal world in this particular field. So there's no particular skill set from being a criminal to manage scaffolding. There must be a lure, and the lure is money.
With Mick Howie's backing, Synergy Scaffolding arguably became one of Sydney's most prosperous construction businesses. But it wasn't just his business prowess or fearsome reputation that allowed it to thrive. The company was also backed by the CFMEU. And yet, worker safety wasn't the priority, as Rob and Patrizia Casaniti discovered.
Patrizia, do you remember that moment when you heard that something had gone wrong on site?
Oh, yes, I do. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It's very vivid in my mind every single day. The phone call came through at about 1:15 p.m. from a friend of ours who was also on that site and heard the news. And he called and told me, he goes, look, something's happened at the site. I think you better go.
As you said, it's believed 2 men are trapped under scaffolding that's collapsed.
All I remember is getting there, getting out of the car and nearly collapsing to the ground.
Along with his colleague, Khalid Webe, Christopher had been directly trapped in the rubble.
He was alive for about 20 minutes, and eventually he suffocated. He was screaming out his mother's name, like, get my mum, where's my mum? And Khalid held his hand until Christopher passed away.
Just asking for help. Asking for help, asking for his mum. It's very hard, very hard. An 18-year-old boy. I mean, you see grown men crying and you just think, not again, not another one, not another person, not going home that night.
Former CFMEU New South Wales Secretary Darren Greenfield was on site within 5 minutes of the tragedy happening. He later did an interview with 60 Minutes, the concerned and supportive union boss.
People shouldn't die because of money. There's no excuse for a worker on a construction site to pass away over money and a program. If something takes a little bit longer to build, so be it.
But despite Greenfield's public assurances, tonight we can reveal the CFMEU did little to protect workers like Christopher Casaniti. In fact, Greenfield and his union kept on supporting Synergy. After Christopher's death, the union signed new agreements with Synergy's key players, enabling the company's access to some of the biggest job sites in the country. And the friendly treatment continued even after 2022, when a court found the company responsible for Christopher's death, instead of paying the record $2.2 million fine for putting workers in significant peril. Synergy simply wound up, only to re-emerge as a new firm, SSS. Union and industry insiders have told us the CFMEU kept pushing this new company onto work sites. Today, Synergy's new corporate entity dominates the scaffolding sector and is attached to some of our country's most sacred landmarks and will soon be linked to the world's most ambitious development, a $1.5 trillion smart city under construction in Saudi Arabia. Business is clearly booming.
After Chris's death, the CFMEU fired up and said, the wrong things happened here. This has to stop. What we've discovered is the CFMEU has given the new version of Synergy EBAs and union backing, allowing it to prosper. Do you think that's acceptable?
No.
No.
The week that Christopher died, the CFMEU were at our doorstep. They brought Christopher's clothing back to us, his hard hat. They sat with us for a week filling out forms. They helped us through the whole incident, the whole week, 2 weeks. They came in numbers to Christopher's funeral. But to hear that, they've given Synergy a bit of a leg up, I find that quite disappointing. I didn't know that was going on.
The union is meant to be playing a role stopping companies that have left workers dead from prospering. If that's not happening, what does it say?
Well, I think it's a betrayal of the members who pay their fees to be protected by the union.
Rob Critchlow is disappointed, but not surprised, because as a senior police officer, he investigated other allegedly Underworld-linked building firms for suspect behaviour. In late 2021, he was in charge of a task force investigating the union itself, including now former New South Wales CFMEU boss Darren Greenfield. Secret cameras placed in the ceiling of the CFMEU office captured Greenfield allegedly accepting wads of bribe cash from a Chinese plastering company.
Was it fair to say the only way to crack the CFMEU in your investigation was to treat it like a crime gang?
Well, I think the CFMEU behaves like a crime gang. Badges of rank, authorities, closed networks, very, very stable leadership. It's like a hereditary monarchy. It's closed. And with that, like any organisation that shuns external scrutiny or daylight, they're ripe for corruption.
Sacked as union boss on Friday, Darren Greenfield is also facing bribery charges, but has strongly denied the allegations. He is yet to face court. But there can be little doubt the administrator now running the union will be examining why firms with alleged underworld links or dodgy safety records have been given union backing, especially when the ultimate cost can be paid by a worker like Rob and Patricia Casaniti's son, Christopher.
Do you think more workers like Chris might die unless there's a proper clean-up of the construction industry?
100%.
My question is, where's the regulator in all this? Where's the government? Where's the policing in all this?
There's something missing. There's a regulatory response missing. You need to take some really strong regulatory legislative action on a holistic basis to say we don't accept this anymore, that the community won't accept organised crime involved in the building industry, that the companies involved in crime cannot continue to exist. Individuals that corrupt and bribe have no place in civil society.
Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.